Welcome to the 1 to 9 podcast for interesting insights and knowledge from animals and other beings within multidimensional realms. Well, here we are for another 1 to 9 podcast. How you doing, Diana?
I'm okay. How are you, Karen?
I'm pretty good. Today we have invited in the Mushroom Collective.
Yes. When we had this idea, what was it, last week, a couple of days ago, the mushrooms started entering the edges of
your visionary field?
My mental landscape. And at first they were really clamoring to get in. But then after a couple of days, they kind of quieted down because they knew where we were going to be talking to them. So
good. So they knew they'd gotten on the schedule for the next podcast.
Right.
Then they left you alone. So we have a little bowl of shiitake mushrooms here that are joining us in person or in flesh or however they'd like to be.
They're saying hi.
Hi, shiitakes. And then we're also inviting in mostly the edible mushroom collective today, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's the mushrooms are so vast that we can't really invite everybody in on the same show and probably get enough information out.
Right. Okay. So the shiitakes are saying, we'd like to introduce ourselves.
Okay.
So they're not actually moving around and sort of like jumping up and whatever. But I kind of like just see them saying, "Oh, hi, I'm the funny one."
Oh, shiitake is the funny one. Oh
no!
Oh, they're the funny one in this.
They're individuals in there, right?
Oh, okay.
And they each want to introduce themselves.
Oh my goodness!
I know, right? I mean, it's going to go fast. It's not that many.
Okay.
So no, I mean there are quite a bit in there, and they're all kind of like bunched together. So they're kind of like separating themselves out, and they're forming this line, and they're just going down the line. And they're saying, I'm the funny one. They're just saying various things with respect to their characters. I'm not going to go through them all because I can't really hear what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
But they're all different. Okay. And so
this is reminding me a little bit of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I'm just saying.
That's right. Yeah. Because they have kind of like their unique characteristics,
Okay, well, this is very interesting to know. It's like, so each mushroom is its own individual.
Yes, even though they're connected,
Yes, there's the mushroom
physically,
grid.
And then energetically and spiritually, even metaphysically, right? Just like humans, they're individuals, but also connected as part of this gigantic whole.
Right. And if we go deep enough into it, we're all part of the same oneness. These little shiitake mushrooms are representative of the whole grid and of mushrooms in some ways, and they're connected. I know they're connected by this great underground sort of neural pathway that covers the earth, right? Or pretty much covers the earth, maybe not everywhere. And do we find, I have a side question I need to ask, do we find any mushrooms in the oceans?
Yeah, there's mushroom-like plants in there.
Okay.
In that they also aren't part of on the kind of like part of the grid.
Mm-hmm. So they're part of the grid, or they're a different grid?
Well, it's a different grid because it's in the ocean rather than in the earth, but it's still somehow connected, meaning that sort of like the grids can communicate with each other. Okay,
and that question partly came up because the dolphins have asked.
Yeah, they asked to be included here because they were really curious about mushrooms.
And are the dolphins curious because they have heard that the mushrooms are higher intelligence or higher consciousness or higher vibrating energy? Because we know that about dolphins.
Right. Well, they're curious because they themselves cannot actually go up on land and kind of like do their investigations on their own.
Oh, okay. So they're just listening in.
Yeah. So they want to know more about mushrooms.
Okay.
Because they do know that somehow they fit into this evolution, this change that's happening now.
The change that's happening now. So this is the big, awakening consciousness shift that's taking place and opening up more multidimensional realms for access, deeper understandings.
Yes.
And all right. So the mushrooms are assisting all of us with this same transition.
Meaning?
No, let me ask the mushrooms then, if they don't want to be shortchanged, what percentage of this whole consciousness shift do they attribute to them?
Well, they're saying 50%.
50%. Interesting.
I know.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting. So is that if we eat the mushrooms, we take part in that, or is they're just doing that as part of their existence on this earth?
Well,
a free gift?
They're doing it for themselves too.
Okay.
Right? But the fact that more people are cultivating mushrooms and more mushrooms are growing everywhere, cultivated and in the wild too, they feel that because of what the energy that they're kind of gathering from the depths of the earth to create their networks and the mushrooms themselves, they feel that they're responsible for a lot of this.
The big consciousness shift that's taking place right now.
The raising of vibrational energy.
Wow, thank you, mushrooms. That's really tremendous.
I know. So, yeah.
And it helps to eat them as well, I'm assuming. But I don't know.
Definitely. It helps to eat them, yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of their functions, too. Mm-hmm. They would rather have humans and animals eat them than just kind of dying and sort of melting back into the earth.
So I have Ollie here today, and I'm wondering if I should start feeding some of these mushrooms to Ollie.
Oh, it all depends on if he actually wants to eat them.
Oh, so that's really interesting that they take credit for 50% of the consciousness shift that's going on.
Okay, they're taking credit. We don't know if that's really actually the case, right? Because like I said, they think of themselves as really important. I know, sorry, mushrooms, a couple of days ago, I referred to you as being vain. But, I don't want to say that you're too self-important, but, you're right to think of yourselves as really important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we drive a ton of medicinal uses of mushrooms and as well as edible, and if they're actually working in the background to raise the vibration of this earth and its inhabitants, those are pretty important.
And they also think that they're very, very beautiful to look at too, each and every one of them.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Visual energy, they're bringing something to your eyes.
Okay, also. So just by looking at them, so raising them, even if you don't eat them, can be important because it forces you to look at them more.
Right.
Going in the woods and foraging for them. I have right here a playing card deck with them on. So all of that is the same vibration, or do you get more vibration just by eating them?
It's different kinds of vibration. And you probably get, if you eat them, you get more of the energy that's coming from the earth. But, I mean, if you're around them and if you're meditating on them or if you're cultivating them, you also get an energy shift, meaning that you absorb the energy that they've created from the earth. And
this is a even higher vibrating energy than plants, like diet-wise?
Yes.
And is it
yes, they're saying yes.
And it's a consciousness shifting energy as well?
Yes, they're saying yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to expand and learn more and grow and have deeper understandings, eating mushrooms could help you.
Yes.
And they're not talking about the psychedelic kinds.
No, we're talking just about plain old I was going to say ordinary. No, it's not ordinary.
It's the wrong word to use for mushrooms.
The varieties of mushrooms that you can find in regular grocery stores and then also specialty stores too.
Right, like portobello's, oyster mushrooms.
Chanterelles.
Okay.
Trumpet mushrooms.
Enoki. Lion's mane, puffballs. King trumpets.
Right.
Criminis. Maitakes. What about maitakes that's special?
Okay. So I'd been looking at a picture of them, a really nice picture of maitake mushrooms. And somehow it was they. I was going to say it. No, they were telling me that if the maitake mushrooms actually chopped up, chopped is kind of like a bad word. They don't like the word chopped. They also don't like the word processed. Is made into smaller pieces.
Would they prefer to be torn apart, or would they prefer to be cut with a knife?
Okay. For some reason, they're just taking objection to the word itself, right?
Right. So
but they're saying, yes, you have to
break them apart into small pieces.
Yeah.
Is there some chemical reaction that happens when you mince them?
Apparently, yes.
Okay, so there's a chemical that is released, and what does that chemical do for us?
It kind of makes the energy in the mushroom, the vibration of the mushroom, it increases it quite a lot. And
I feel like running out and getting some maitakes and mincing them up, and then from there I just toss them on my salad.
You can put them on your salad. You can eat them raw, or you can lightly cook them.
Lightly cook them. So the mushrooms prefer to be cooked how?
Well, they can be sautéed. Any kind of cooking method, right? Just not to the point where they're burnt and really hard.
Okay.
Don't roast them.
No crispy mushrooms here.
Yeah, no. Well, they can be crispy on the outside, right? But
a lot of people put portobellos on their grill outside. They don't like that because the fires are reaching them?
No, that's okay because the insides of them are still nice and soft.
Just don't make them burnt crispy.
Yeah.
All right. What about drying them? Does that increase their energy or just preserve it?
They're saying they don't really like drying.
They don't like to be dried.
Yeah.
Just get them fresh.
Get them fresh.
A lot of people sell dried mushrooms.
I know. Yeah. But they're saying, if that's the only thing that you have available to you, dried mushroom, yeah, work with it. But
well, if their energy is given to you just by looking at them, if you can't get to eat the fresh ones, can you just look at a picture of the fresh ones versus dried?
They're saying that you put a picture of the fresh ones in the package or on the package of the dried mushrooms,
which they often do,
which actually helps a lot.
Oh, interesting.
The energy.
So a photograph of the mushrooms can actually bring up the energy of the dried out mushrooms.
Right.
That's really interesting. Is there a mushroom that thinks that, besides the maitake, that thinks that people should eat a lot of them?
Oh. They all think that people should eat.
A lot of them. And is it
should prefer them.
Are we talking about 3 times a day?
Oh, they're saying, I don't know, if you want to go overboard, do that. But then, you may get sick of us.
Oh, yeah, that could happen. So let me ask about the mushroom coffees and the mushroom drinks where they've been pulverized into powders and then they stick some hot water on them or any kind of water and bring them back and drink them.
Well, so what they're saying is that if they make the powder from a mushroom that's been kind of roasted, so it's rock hard, right?
Uh-huh. What about if it's been dehydrated and then
that's like dried.
Yeah, so it's less.
It's less.
Yeah. So these mushroom drinks are sketchy.
They would prefer not to be processed that way.
Would they prefer to really not be processed?
You mean just eat them raw?
Eat them raw or lightly cooked?
If by processed you mean just kind of like roasted and ground up, yeah.
I guess. I'm not 100% sure how all these mushroom coffee people are grinding them up, but they're doing something to dry them out. So they could put them in a pill form, or they could put them in I guess those are mostly the medicinal ones, not the edible ones.
Right.
Which is a little different than...
Yeah, but you're still consuming the medicinal ones.
Right.
So, okay.
We can talk to the medicinal ones another podcast, too.
Okay.
Let's stick with the edible ones. I just was curious about the beverages that are all being made with them, if they like that type of preparation and use in general. And their answer is that they're not sure about the integrity of the way they're created.
Right. It does something to alter the energy.
Mm-hmm. Dumb it down.
It changes it.
It changes it.
And lessens it.
Okay, dims it.
So, I mean, you may get some kind of mutated energy.
Mm-hmm. So now we have established that these mushrooms are responsible for the 50% of the consciousness shift taking place on the earth now.
Well, that's what they say.
And they're very beautiful.
Yes.
And even if they come close to that 50% or somewhere high in there, even if they're above 10%, I'd be like forever grateful to the mushrooms, because it seems like that's a free thing that we can just count on them doing or thank them for doing.
Right. And so, they're saying, get the word out.
Get the word out.
Get the word out.
Have they seen the movie Fantastic Fungi?
That's kind of like partly what's feeding into their appreciation of themselves.
Oh, so the movie with the word fantastic fungi in it, titled Fantastic Fungi.
They think they're fantastic.
And why not, right?
Why not?
And
exactly. Why not?
So there's a list of mushrooms I have here, like oyster mushrooms, morels, chanterelles, chicken of the woods, one of my favorites, enokis, lion's manes, puffballs, king trumpets, and creminis, or the baby portobellas. Is there any of those mushrooms that has a particular message for us?
Well, I mean, basically, they're all kind of saying we're this big family, but there's these little groups that form up the big family. Just like the shiitakes have got their own little individual personalities. They've got their individual personalities. So when you're actually dealing with them, either growing them yourself or buying them in the store and then eating them or cooking them, they're saying you've got to take that into account.
Okay, so they're individuals like humans are individuals. They want to be, okay, so recognize that, to see them, to recognize them, to thank them for being in your...
Yes.
And if you're very perceptive, maybe even see what they have to say to you, or hear what they have to say.
Right, because, they could be telling you exactly what they want you to do with them. How
you mean is how to prepare them.
Right.
How many of them to eat, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you could actually go to the grocery store and hear which mushrooms wanted to go home with you.
You could, right. Because this is like a relationship between the eater and then the mushroom. And it's kind of like a really personal relationship somehow.
Right. But they have a fairly profound consciousness than themselves.
Collectively they do, and then also individually they do too.
I wonder if that's been proven yet scientifically. It takes us a while sometimes to prove things.
I don't know. It's like they're all of them are kind of like really old.
They're really old?
Yeah.
Have they been around as long as, like, say, dolphins?
Yes.
And by saying they're all really old, does that mean that part of the first mushrooms are still with these new mushrooms?
Yeah, and somehow
later.
It's like they've got their fungi networks, which go deep I mean, they go deep into the ground, and the networks never really die. So the networks are basically kind of like almost the same ones that were in existence when they first started.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. That's why they say they're so old. So they've got kind of like wisdom of the earth.
So do you gain some of that wisdom by eating them, or is it more just the inner consciousness shift?
No, you gain some of that wisdom too.
Dana, I have to ask you, don't you just want to reach over there and eat a shiitake?
No. No.
Don't you want to grab their wisdom, or you just want to look at them?
No. I'm admiring them because each of them is a perfect little individual mushroom.
And beautiful, too.
And
look at the little designs on top of them.
Yes.
You stop and notice. They each have like a little personal, like, flower of life type design on the very top of them.
Right. Each of them has got its own personality and its own beauty.
So I wonder.
I don't want to steal anything from them either.
Well,
because what they give us willingly, right?
Mm-hmm. But eating them wouldn't be stealing them; it'd be part of the process.
No, right.
Of receiving.
Right, but it's kind of like this relationship between the eater and the mushroom. It's a little bit hard to. It's different than with plants somehow.
Well, it's like animals. You can have this relationship with animals. Like eating a chicken might make you more fierce. You would have a relationship with the animal. We're used to sort of personifying animals and allowing them their certain consciousness level.
Right.
We're not as used to it with plants and fungi and...
Yeah. So, I mean, they do think of themselves as more human-like than plants.
Okay. And they share, in general, a greater consciousness. Okay. Different from a fairy or a gnome or something like that. Homunculi.
Right.
I'm sorry. I just learned a new word.
And so that's what I was getting. So when the shiitakes wanted to introduce themselves individually,
it's the
little homunculi in them.
Okay.
Because they want to be recognized as their own individual.
So since these mushrooms don't really live that long, what happens to the homunculi once the mushroom is no longer alive?
Oh, well, the homunculi is the energy.
Okay.
Right? So if you eat the mushroom, right, basically ingesting the homunculi too becomes part of you.
Right.
And if the mushroom dies, then the homunculi kind of like the energy goes back into the network.
If you ate it?
No, if the mushroom is not eaten.
Okay, so if you eat it, you get it, the homunculi. If they just die, the homunculi absorbs back into the network.
So this is where the like consciousness expanding comes from, I guess. The homunculi and the mushrooms.
It's a big leap to think of this. So if they have any detailed explanation, it would probably be really helpful. Like a mushroom is part of a network. It's wise because it's part of a network that's been around forever, and it brings forth that wisdom, and it comes up out of the ground. It blooms, so to speak. Then in that process of blooming, how does the homunculi gain additional consciousness?
Well, it's kind of like it's the metaphysical manifestation of, so like the energy that the mushroom is bringing from the depths of the earth.
Okay, so the earth is shifting itself, and the mushroom's basically alchemizing that into a new consciousness.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And the homunculi are part of that.
Yeah, homunculi.
I'm going to look that word up when we're done with this podcast.
But it kind of like fits in terms of they want people to think of them as more human-like, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we already talk about mushrooms as being, they're already anthropomorphized in terms of, we call the mushroom meat flesh.
Mm-hmm. Or meat,
right?
Right.
I don't know, various other things too, I guess. I can't think of any at the moment, but...
That's all right. So the maitake It has some magical powers to it. We're not exactly sure what they are, especially if they've been chopped up and either lightly cooked or added to a salad. And then the other mushrooms are all kind of in the same general ballpark of, they all bring something slightly different, but nothing really specifically outstanding like the maitake does if we eat them. Is that right? Or is that too easy to jump into that?
Well, they
I don't want to make everybody run out and just only eat maitakes.
Right. They each have got their own little flavors. I mean, but specialties.
Yeah.
Okay. Special kind of energy. Right. But you can't really say, okay, the morels have an energy that will do this for you.
Oh, you can't say that.
Nah, or at least they don't want to, because it kind of depends on the relationship between the eater and the mushroom.
So in general?
So in general, right, they all do something. They all have the capability to expand your consciousness. But they will each one of them will do it in perhaps a slightly different way.
So I'm going to jump to the conclusion then that we should really probably just eat a variety of them, or we should be very thoughtful about or mindful about which ones we choose and ask them, which one of you wants to.
Which one of you, ask them, which one of you would actually benefit me the most at this?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of like a lengthy process, since you basically have to be looking at pictures of them. Or go to a store which has a great variety of mushrooms.
Right. Well, I think most people are going to be restricted to the ones that are available to them, even if they saw pictures, unless they wanted to just sit there and meditate with the photograph.
They could do that too.
If the one spoke to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of revealing that these mushrooms have a consciousness, have a homunculi. Did I say it right?
Homunculi.
Homunculi. I'm never going to remember that. Homunculi. They are, well, I wouldn't say they have one. They are an homunculi, right? So this bowl of shiitakes here have homunculi, or is a bowl of homunculi.
Little homunculi. Okay, one mushroom has got homunculus in it. And homunculi is plural.
Right, okay. Of course. Thanks for pointing that out. Diana has many PhDs in literature and stuff. I'm just an artist. Is there any message that the mushrooms want for us globally to take away from this that they haven't already given us?
Spread the word. They want more people to become familiar with more varieties of mushrooms and discover how fabulous they are.
But all right, that's awesome. But the motivation for people doing that is usually just selfish. They want to discover them because they want to become fabulous too, like the mushrooms.
Well, no, okay.
Expand their consciousness.
Well, people may have many, many different motivations. Right? If they're cooks, they want to have added flavors to their foods, make their food more delicious. Right?
Or nutritious. Some of us cooks
or nutritious, exactly.
Some of us cooks care about nutrition.
Right. Or...
Right, we have the medicinals, we have the psychedelics. There's a lot of reasons that people would want to get involved in mushrooms.
Right.
But I'm just saying everything's saying...
And so the more you are involved with them, mm-hmm. the more you will be able to tap into kind of like the mushroom network.
Okay. Now, we're not specifically talking about psychedelics here, but some psychedelic mushrooms are quote-unquote edible as well. And are they part of what's communicating to us now, or should that be a separate conversation?
No, that's kind of like the edible mushrooms are here.
Okay, just the edible mushrooms. Just want to make sure we're clarifying that.
Right.
All right, so the fabulous mushrooms... which is similar to fantastic fungi, right?
Right.
More people need to know about them. They are assisting in the consciousness shift of this world. You can be part of it by looking at them or eating them. Be mindful about your approach to mushrooms.
Yeah, you treat them with respect.
Treat them with respect because they have homunculi in them, and so they're basically individual consciousness, each mushroom.
That's right.
I have to just ask them, like, can you tap into an enoki right now? Because that always comes like a crowd of mushrooms. And are we supposed to like look at each individual in that crowd and say, hey, which one of you? Or can that be handled as a crowd?
Well, it can be handled as a crowd, but you have to consciously realize the crowd is formed up of little individuals.
Right. Little individual homunculi.
Yeah.
That sounds like monkeys. And do the dolphins have a question?
No, they're saying that this is all really interesting. It's like we didn't know any of this before. They're saying that there are some plants, organisms that they know of in the ocean that also have this kind of like network. It could be a
coral. Would coral be one of them, or?
Yeah, I guess so. It's either like somehow a network that's in the water,
okay,
or also, in the ocean floor. And so I guess they're realizing now that the same thing is actually happening on land, that there are these organisms with individual consciousnesses that are part of this immense network that's really old and
is helping to shift the consciousness.
Right. I mean, this is why they were curious, because they could actually not go and see this for themselves.
So the dolphins can spread the word as well about the fantastic.
Yes.
And that they're having help that they have this immense helpers on Earth, that they're not responsible for just doing it in the ocean.
No, that's true.
Maybe they can sort of communicate. They can open up communications between them, the fungi and the fungi network, their own network that encircles the land part of the Earth, and the ocean part of the Earth could start communicating and maybe amplify what's going on.
Right. No, I mean, they're saying no, they're already doing that.
Okay, excellent. Any final last comments?
From the mushrooms?
From the mushrooms?
Oh, no, they're just jumping up and down saying, yay, 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 yay.
All right, well, thank you, Diana, and thank you, mushrooms. And I will never think of you as anything but fantastic from now on.
That's right. We are fantastic.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. That's all for this episode of the 1 to 9 podcast. Thank you for listening, and please sign up for our newsletter at 1to9podcast.com.